conference, I would like you to meet the newest Liberal Democrat MP, Sam Gyimah.
Well done. Well, you can sit down. Wow. Now, if Joe had promised me this reception earlier, I would have joined a lot earlier than I have today. So, for those of you who don't know me, I am Sam Gyimah, and for those of you who haven't met me before, you might have the reaction that a constituent of mine had back in 2010 when I was first selected to run for the East Surrey constituency. And when I knocked on their door and they opened the door, they looked at me surprised and said, "I expected tall, dark, and handsome." To which I replied, well, 2 out of 3 is not bad. But as Jo said in her wonderful and warm introduction, we've known each other for a long time, but also admired each other's politics from across the aisle. And what I would like to do in the brief time that I have with you today is to tell you a little bit about myself and how I got to find myself in Bournemouth today. When we told our 5-year-old son this morning that we were going to the seaside and that we were going to be stayed in a hotel, he said, "Daddy, if there's a swimming pool in your hotel, don't swim. And you and Mummy should not go and swim in the sea without me. You're not allowed to have any fun without me." But I was born in the UK, but I grew up in Ghana when my parents separated, brought up by my mother, a midwife. My childhood was characterized by adversity. And in that sense, I was never what many people would call your typical Tory recruit. But I was attracted to the one nation values of the party. Became an MP in East Surrey in 2010. And since then, for 7 years, I've been on the front bench. I was Parliamentary Private Secretary to David Cameron. I was a government whip. I've served in 4 different government departments. So you get the picture. I didn't take the decision to be here lightly. But I found myself last year when Theresa May's withdrawal agreement was published, based on my experience negotiating with the EU on space and science research, that despite what was being said, that withdrawal agreement was the worst of all worlds for our country. It was sold to us as a deal, but what I saw was, yes, we exit and we negotiate the future afterwards. We would be doing so with our hands tied behind our back as a country. And it was not a recipe to deliver on those promises that had been made to the people of this country in the 2016 referendum. But I never tried to relitigate the referendum. My view was that now that we know what is negotiable, that why can we not go and ask the people if this is what they really want? So I resigned from my ministerial job. I was Minister of State for University, Science, Research and Innovation. But little did I know how much at odds that was going to put me with my party. And then, after that, I ran in the Conservative leadership race. And I ran in the Conservative leadership race knowing that I had almost no chance of winning. But because I thought it presented the opportunity, while the party was discussing its future, to make the case for Brexit realism and to talk about the one nation, or as Joe put it, liberal values that many of you here observe. But during the course of that contest, it became clear to me that there were too few of us on the Conservative side to keep that fight going on within. And then we broke for the summer, and we came back, and as Joe said, we had this vote to stop No Deal. And I was disheartened to find that the way the whipping had been framed was for us MPs to choose our careers, in other words, our own salaries, over putting the country first. In other words, playing into the worst perceptions of the public of us politicians. We're in it for ourselves. Because there is now no orderly way for the UK to leave the EU on the 31st of October. If the Prime Minister got a deal at the European Council on the 17th and 18th of October, it will not be possible for us to leave on the 31st in an orderly way. And given that now the extension bill has been passed, which he calls a surrender bill, he's in a sense putting himself in a position where no deal is the only thing he can deliver by the 31st of October. But that is why I think it was right for us to stand up, to work cross-party, to stop No Deal. But my concerns with the Conservative Party go beyond Brexit. And Jo put it very well when she said, it's when she picked up on the issue of law and order. Essentially, a government that has made law enforcement the centerpiece of its program, more police officers to make sure that its citizens obey the law, is saying to us it will pick and choose which laws it respects. That is incredibly dangerous. When our Constitution, when you're playing fast and loose with our Constitution, when you're playing fast and loose with people's livelihoods, when you're playing fast and loose with people's security, I think it is right that we all stand up. But when people stand up, they are called collaborators, they are called saboteurs, they are called mutineers. Something has gone wrong. And I believe this is not about leave or remain. I genuinely think that you cannot, the ends justify the means is no way to run a democracy. And if you break the rule for yourself, you break the rule for everyone. But the problem is not just on the Conservative side. When I look across the aisle, I also see on the Labour benches the same issue that I've seen on the Conservative side. a doctrinaire, intolerant approach, which means centrists are being squeezed out. So you have Alistair Campbell and Ken Clarke both being politically homeless. And that is why when I spoke to Jo and I approached her and said in our meeting, I'd like to run as an independent. And Jo, can we work together? Maybe stand your Liberal Democrat candidate down and I can run and win. And she's a feisty woman. She looked me dead in the eye and said, Sam, I'm in the business of creating Liberal Democrat MPs, not providing a way back for Conservative MPs. But the conversation got very interesting when we began to talk about what the challenge and the opportunity looks like. The values that we've taken for granted for so long in our country, the values that underpin liberal democracy, are under threat. We cannot assume that our institutions and our democracy is immune from the corrosive effects of populism and nationalism that is sweeping other democracies. And what Jo and I discussed was that the Liberal Democrats have a unique opportunity to make sure that we fight to defend those values and create a new force in British politics. And that is why I find myself here today. Walked out of a ministerial job, risked losing the whip. I have one of the safest Conservative seats in the country. But I know that something that trips off the tongue of everyone who goes into politics, I want to make a difference. I want to serve my country. That for our generation, Jo, if we are really going to hold true to these comments that we make, now is the time. Now is the time for our generation, now is the time for you, and now is the time for everyone else. So I have taken a second look at the Liberal Democrats, and I am delighted to be here to embark on this journey at this point in time with you.